welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Michael.
Hello, everyone.
And Jason.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
I threw you off, didn't I? Because I threw the everyone, and you usually say
you
everyone, and it just, I could feel you freeze. Uh-oh.
What do I do?
I think I recovered
do I
nicely,
do?
thank you. I'm doing well, Dustin. How about yourself?
I'm here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another rough day at work, I think, huh?
Yeah, it's been that way recently. Glad to talk about movies now.
Yeah, movies are fun. Work isn't.
Yeah, I tripped over Babygate on my way here and cracked my head, so, cool.
Bested by a baby.
It happens to the best of
Yeah.
us. At least you've got an excuse now when you don't remember the plot of the
Yeah,
movie.
I have a concuss. I'm feeling very
legitimate,
concussed. I don't know what happened. I fell over to Babygate.
So today we are wrapping up our series about made-for-TV movies.
Yes.
We've got quite the hat trick going on because we are in a different country again, in a different decade, and it's also another one based on a work of literature.
Yep,
So somehow we've pulled off an amazing trio of connections
interesting.
in our
Yeah.
picks.
We didn't actually plan that, did we?
No, just a
sweet.
happy accident.
Yeah,
Because I picked Seance like day one when we brought up this idea.
we're just that good. We're that prepared.
Yeah,
But yeah, we're going to talk about Seance by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, as he was the director. First, we're going to do all our usual stuff, chat about movies we've been watching, and I've got a podcast shout-out.
Woot woot.
yeah.
I need to make a graphic for this, or like an audio graphic.
You mean like
Dustin's
sound
podcast shout out.
Save that for when we go full daytime radio show.
Dustin's podcast shout out.
Yes, we are part of the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, and we love it. We're so happy to be a part of it. There's all kinds of other cool podcasts out there, and we're under no compulsion to shout all this out, but I wanted to, so I've been researching and looking at all our other fun network neighbors to see what they're about. So today I want to talk about the Rude Horror Podcast.
Rude horror.
I already love the
podcast.
name.
Despite the name, not that rude.
Okay, all right.
It's hosted by a guy who's called Marcus Rude, and he's actually a pretty nice guy, based on the episodes I've listened to.
Okay, I get it. Nice.
Yeah, a little play.
He's just a lifelong horror fan. I kind of connected with his whole little backstory to get into horror because he was very terrified by Chucky at a young age. So I was like, dude, I'm vibing with that. And basically, he just wanted a podcast to talk about horror with people, and it's rapidly evolved into having a lot of guests on, which that's kind of the main feature is him like interviewing people and just chatting about horror and if they're in the industry, their career and stuff.
Cool.
So the one I sampled that was very interesting to me, and I'm sure to you guys too, it was a recent one we had on Sylvia Colatina. She was in The House by the Cemetery, Murder Rock,
Oh,
and
yeah.
was it the Great Alligator by Martino.
Okay, sweet. That's pretty fun.
It was super fun. She said on the episode it was her first time actually being on a podcast to be interviewed.
Huh.
So that's awesome that she's getting out of there. I don't remember who she plays in Murder Rock. I know it's a smaller role, but in House by the Cemetery, she is the little girl in the wheelchair. Is it Mae Fraudstein?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was super cool to hear from her and hear her perspective. Of course, he asked like what it was like to work with Fulci, which was very hilarious because she said that he was very demanding and very like strict, but also she could tell it came from a place of like respect. Like even though there were child actors there, he considered them like if you're here to be in my movie, you are like worthy of being treated as just like any other actor on
Like
the set.
any other asshole.
And that she really had that sense that like once they were done shooting, he was like proud of the performance she delivered. So that was cool.
It's one of those things like you were just like the rest of us. I don't know if I want to be that. Can I have special privileges here since I'm a child?
I learned some fun things about House by the Cemetery I never knew. Like actually, it's the one kill where it's like his arm comes out with the razor and he slashes the woman's throat. That arm is actually Sylvia's arm.
No.
And they like doctored it up for the scene.
That's cool.
So she actually got to like pull the razor blade across the throat and stuff.
Nice.
And she talked about how that was like it was like this weird, like funny kind of fun thing for her at the time.
Murder.
Well, it's all fantasy.
Is it?
But yeah, it was cool because I don't think I've seen her at a lot of conventions or really like out there. They're doing a new, or they may have already come out like a 4K of House by the Cemetery, and she mentioned she's in like a new like feature on that being
That's cool.
interviewed and questioned. So
have to get that one another look sometime. It was never my favorite of Fulci's, but it has some moments.
Yeah, when they talked about it, what they said that kind of struck me was the fact that it's more of like a gothic horror kind of thing. And I think for me, it always gets off the rails because it comes after the Beyond.
Yeah. Which is
And when I compare those, it's like,
there's no comparison.
it makes me feel weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, super fun show. Go check it out. He has all kinds of interviews with lots of interesting people. I'm sure you'll find one that you want to listen to.
Sweet.
I always thought it would be cool to hear people interview not the main star of a film.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's why I
like-
really liked it.
You know, like in almost every podcast that's like a major podcast, it's the same people
Yeah.
who kind of like float through podcasts, and you're like, okay, well, I've heard
heard
you
the story.
I've heard
Right.
you interviewed twice, and I've heard the same story on each one, but like the perspective has to be so much different for somebody who's literally like, this is a big moment for them to be in this film. You know, and it doesn't make them less of a star or anything. Like, they were still in the same movie, but hearing their perspective, they're not the kind of people who would get invited to a convention.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if you happen to get shot by someone in Walking Dead, apparently you can have a convention booth now. So
That's a whole other
you know
mess.
that one episode in season 3, last 5 seconds of the third episode? That's me right there. I'll sign your autograph for $50.
Oh, you know, another thing I really dug is after kind of the general interview, they just chatted about like horror films in general, and I really liked it because she came out really hard in like support of Manhunter,
Wow.
Nice.
which
nice.
I love that movie, and I feel like it often gets forgotten
Yeah.
amid the
That's great.
the Hannibal Lecter movies.
That's a fun. I'm gonna have to listen to that one because it's fun interview style.
Nice.
All right, so Michael, what have you been watching?
I actually really liked mine, so I wasn't sure if you wanted me to go first or if we needed to do a shit sandwich or something.
Go for it.
Okay, so I try not to fall for clickbait on the Facebook stuff, but I always do because I'm a sucker and I have no emotional control.
It's okay. It's okay.
But they were one of those sites was talking about kind of the movies that are getting popular now through streaming that did terrible at the box office, and there was one that caught my interest called Love and Monsters from 2020. Did you guys hear about it?
I've heard the title.
Yeah, the title rings a bell, but I can't really place it.
So it is, I'll give you the synopsis. 7 years after he survived the monster apocalypse, lovable hapless Joel leaves his cozy underground bunker behind on a quest to reunite with his ex. So the basic premise of the film is like there's an asteroid that drops, and it has radioactivity that turns all the bugs into radioactive mutant monster bugs.
Hold on. Is this set in the Cloverfield universe?
It's not.
Okay.
It's really not.
Had to check.
But everybody who's survived, like it's 95% of the planet's gone or something. So like everybody who's survived pairs up into these colonies to try to survive underground because everything else is gone. Like all government's gone. These bugs have like killed everything.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
You learn differently.
Oh, really?
In this film.
Oh.
But the movie was super quirky. Like the comedy was, it kicked off being really witty and quirky, and I was like, this seems familiar. Like the dialogue style feels familiar, so I looked it up, and it was written by a guy named Brian Duffield, who did the Babysitter movies for Netflix,
Oh.
which has Jason's girlfriend in it, one of them. Jason, did you watch him?
I watched the first one.
You got to watch
You
the
didn't
second
care
one.
for it that much, did you?
I liked it until it got dumb.
Listen, watch the sequel. Number one, Jenna Ortega's in it. Number
She
two,
is another one of my girlfriends, so I probably should watch it.
Number two, they take everything that's dumb about it and just crank it up to 11.
Oh, God.
But it's the same writer, and
Yeah.
it really has the same kind of feel, like that same inner monologue, quirky.
Yeah, I like that style a lot.
When I was watching this, I was like, Dustin would love this movie, or at least I think you'd like it. I don't know if you'd love it, but the monster design is really, really fun. It's like they took regular bugs and just had fun thinking like, well, what would this be like if they got mutated by radioactivity? And they're really well done. The CG is great. Apparently, this movie was supposed to be released in the theater.
Was this a COVID death kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. A COVID death. And especially subject matter where half the planet is
Yeah.
dead and like
Yeah, I can
everybody
see that,
goes
yeah.
underground. They were like,
Bad timing.
it was Paramount, and Paramount was like,
Wow.
well, shit. So, and it also didn't star any major people. So it didn't have any of that big attraction, so they just kind of dumped it. But it is now on Amazon Prime streaming. Yes, if you pay for Prime,
Free with Prime.
it's free with Prime.
Hey, it's got Michael Rooker in it.
Yes, I was about to say, pleasant surprise. Michael Rooker showed up, and I was like, I'll watch anything with Michael Rooker in it. I really don't care, including Walking Dead. I watched it until he was gone. So.
Yeah.
He dies. He's like, I'm done now.
Yeah. Honestly, I love this. It was so much fun. It was cute in that same way that the babysitter stuff was. Like, it kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit, like with the schlubby dude trying to get the girl. I mean, I think we all kind of relate to that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
I wonder.
What it must be like to be a... never mind. No, I had a ton of fun with it. Also, the female lead, Amy, is Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist. She was Colleen Chung.
I don't remember Iron Fist, to be honest.
Nobody does.
I haven't seen Iron Fist.
It's not very good.
Okay.
But she
that
was
way.
also apparently in the new Matrix movie.
I didn't watch that
Ooh,
either.
that wasn't very good either.
I'm just really selling her career. Jessica Henwick is her
Well, it's
name.
not her fault.
Well, you know,
She
this
didn't-
movie sounds pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I
Cool.
really enjoyed it. It's easy to get to. Prime, Love and Monsters.
I'll add that to my queue.
I guess I should say it's directed by Michael Matthews, but
Is he like a first-time director, newer director?
there wasn't anything like directorial fantastic about the movie. It was more the writing that stood out for me. So, not to belittle his career or anything. But sorry, buddy.
Oh,
Well,
no.
if it's a good movie, I'm pretty sure the director had something to do with it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah, that's what I'll go with. Okay.
Cool.
Nice.
All right.
I guess I'll go next.
Okay.
Okay. So I feel like I've failed a little bit because
You have.
I've been covering a lot of more mainstream films when we've been doing this the last few episodes. Mm-hmm. And I remembered we had the email from Cliffy, and I'm like, man, I'm failing Cliffy.
Yeah. Don't let Cliffy down.
I got to get back in there with the Shaw Brothers box set. So this week I've just rapid fire, one a night. I've been shooting through these.
Rapid Fire is a good movie. It's got Brandon Lee in it.
True.
That was the movie that I was watching a bunch of rated R movies when I was like 12 or 13, and my mom walked in at like a boob scene in Rapid Fire, and she was like, "How many of these movies that you're watching have boobs?" And I was like, "I don't think I should answer that question."
So the violence quotient was fine, but the boob
yeah.
I
quotient,
grew up in a
Always.
very Christian household,
that's-
so the violence is
Yeah.
always fine, but boobs are off
that was my
limits.
upbringing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
That's the
Dustin.
way.
Please go ahead.
So I'm going to rattle off a few that I'm just going to mention just because, but I've got one I really want to talk about. So I checked out Challenge of the Masters. It was all right. That was like my least favorite of the bunch I went through. It's not that it was bad in any way. It just seemed like it didn't have that wow factor to differentiate itself among all the other martial arts films they've done.
Yeah.
I checked out Five Shaolin Masters and its sort of prequel, Shaolin Temple. I quite liked these. Five Shaolin Masters, a lot of it's in these outdoor sets, where it was like a very different vibe from any of the other ones I've watched. And both it and then Shaolin Temple, they really nail the formula of the whole you're doing training and building up, and then at the end of the film you have these incredible skills and martial art talent, and just some
Classic trope.
crazy awesome good fights where there'll be 5 different battles going on and they keep cutting between them, and it's super hype, super fun. So loved those.
Cool.
But my one I really want to dig in on here is the Mighty Peking Man.
Your live tweets or your live messages to us while you were watching this.
Oh my god, yes, did that amuse you
Very,
guys?
I was laying there laughing so hard at your live messaging.
1977. It was Shaw Brothers' take on doing a King Kong riff. I'm sure in the wake of what was the 70s King Kong remake.
Yeah.
So they probably shot right off of
I
that.
think that was 76 when that came out.
Yeah, so
Shaw Brothers, quick, get a King Kong movie out.
fast track it. It's everything you expect. It follows the basic plot. They find out about there's a giant kaiju-sized gorilla in the jungles in the middle of nowhere. They want to go get it, show it off, all that stuff. Every King Kong and sequel and remake and ripoff is kind of all the same plot, right? It's they find out about it. There's some jungle stuff. They bring them back. Ultimately, he goes on a rampage in the city, and then every film kind of picks their own stuff to fill in the middle, like the jelly and the donut. I didn't expect that this one's would be a softcore version of Tarzan, because the majority of the whole they're in the jungle trying to capture this version of Kong. They have Evelyn Kraft, who's apparently only been in a handful of films. I was kind of surprised. And she's in the whole complete, like, torn bikini look going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the exact plot of, like, she crashed out in the jungle and was kind of, like, raised among the animals. And she has, like, a tiger friend and a cheetah friend.
Nice.
And, yeah, and there's just a lot of weirdness there.
Okay. All right.
It's super fun. All the, like, kaiju action is great. It very much has that kind of Toho vibe with, like, the miniatures and the sets and stuff and just the way it looks in execution.
Isn't Danny Lee in that movie too? That was one of his first ones.
Yes.
From The Killer and a thousand other great.
He plays the lead guy, I think, yeah. Yeah, they get him, they bring him back to Hong Kong, they put him on display, things go south. The manager of the whole project gets kind of rapey
Oh.
to the Tarzan girl. Kong goes on a rampage, everyone kind of dies at the end.
Oh, wow.
There you go, good time.
Nice.
Super fun, completely ridiculous.
Sometimes those are the best, though.
I think my favorite
really
thing
loved
that
it.
you messaged, though, was something about I didn't expect them to cut King Kong.
Yes. Well, no, there's this awkward scene where, like, the main dude, he kind of starts to develop a thing with Evelyn Kraft's character. I think they call her Awe, I think's her name. And he starts to have, like, a thing for her, and she's kind of into him. But it also implies that, like, the Kong creature is into her. Mm-hmm. And then so there's this very awkward sex scene where they're, like, in a cave having sex. And the kaiju is just, like, right outside the cave staring in, watching them.
Oh,
then
so it's
he
the
gets,
mighty
like...
Peking Man. P-E-E-K-I-N-G.
And then he gets, like, sad and goes off and, like, has a tantrum.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this movie?
King Incel.
That was my favorite message that you sent so
that's
far.
pretty
I didn't
good.
expect him to cut King Kong.
Super fun, super crazy.
King Cook.
Definitely worth a watch if you've never seen it.
Awesome.
Jason, what you got?
Okay. I watched, it was kind of a, I don't know, sort of an experimental, narrative-free, almost like performance art film.
Hippie.
Jackass Forever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I
Okay.
laughed my ass off.
I'm so bummed that I
It was so
wasn't able to come watch
fucking
it.
funny. I'm not even usually that big into those types of movies. Like, I never watched the series when it was on.
Oh, I did.
I
I was
didn't,
all
I
about
didn't
it.
like the pranks. The pranks always bother me because I don't like when innocent people are like, you know.
In high school, I was into the whole, like, skateboardy culture and all connected things.
Okay.
And so Jackass kind of just goes right in line with that.
Yeah, it does.
So you should go back and watch them because on the recent Jackass Forever press tour, Knoxville talked about that everyone that was pranked, someone who knew about it. That was their boss or somebody like.
Yeah, someone was in on it.
There was not,
Well, there's no
like-
way to do half that shit without someone being in.
Right,
on it.
like, and they made sure that everybody that was done something to was paid,
That's
and like
good.
they were compensated for it.
That's
like,
good at least.
So
Well, I like the movie, the new one, because there was like maybe one prank, and the rest was just them hurting themselves in horrible ways. Horrible ways.
Really, those were always the best parts anyways, so...
Yeah. It was a blast. It was a great time. I recommend it highly.
I recently saw the clip. I haven't seen it yet, but I saw the clip where they had like the punching things built into the coffee cart.
I've seen that clip, yeah.
And just the dude, like he was like, "No, actually, give him a coffee," and then it punches him in the nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about Jackass that I think if you're maybe it's a dude thing. I don't know.
I mean, if you're at all adverse to seeing male genitalia, especially damaged male genitalia, you might want to give this one a skip. But, you know, if that doesn't bother you, go for it.
go for it.
So what genre does this classify as?
I think this would be the genre of comedy.
Comedy art house, maybe?
Comedy, art house comedy. Yeah. Performance art.
Yeah, comedy documentary.
Yeah.
All right, well, today we are talking about Seance, directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. It is our final entry in our made-for-TV movie series. Where to begin?
Perhaps you better start at the beginning.
I think I want to start first talking a little bit about Kiyoshi Kurosawa because I love him.
Okay. I do too.
Okay.
Why did you get so angry about
What
it?
is that? Is it okay that I enjoy his movies, or
I don't,
it's like a-
Fine.
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
okay? So we've been introduced to him before on the podcast because he had a role in Occult, which we covered last year.
Yes.
So that was our little teaser for him, but now we're actually going to talk about his works. First thing we should get clear out of the gate, he is not related to Akira Kurosawa.
No.
That comes up a lot, I guess, just because of the names, but it's it's a more common last name in Japan, so
You laid that Smith guy around
Yeah.
the corner?
yeah.
You're a Smith, right? You're all Smiths?
He got his start actually working in Pink films, which I think is interesting.
Did he do any scenes with the pool?
I don't. I don't know what you're talking about, Jason.
Oh, okay.
You just broke Dustin's brain.
Because I immediately started to answer him. Notably, 1983, he directed Kandagawa Pervert Wars, which is an amazing title.
Wow, Pervert Wars.
He had some other theatrical works in the 80s, but a lot of his ramp up was doing V Cinema films in the 90s, which we've talked about before. That was their direct to video kind of fare. A lot of these were more crime related or Yakuza flicks, including he did entries in the Suit Yourself or Shoot Yourself series, which is an amazing name for some crime movies. A few of his films I just wanted to highlight to throw out there just to get in the minds of people.
Sure.
In 1989, he directed Sweet Home with Toho, and this was produced by Juzo Itami. And I think it's worth mentioning because it's a weird example of kind of a bigger budget, truly 80s style horror film from Japan.
I love Sweet Home. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
It's incredibly fun. It's not really scary, but it's almost like that Ghostbusters vibe of it's fun and whimsical.
I mean, there are parts that I think are a little scary. It's more atmospheric than
Yeah.
anything. And Dick Smith does the special effects on it, and they're fucking amazing.
Yeah,
Does this
truly
have
amazing
an
ghost.
actual good release? Because I can't find it anywhere.
It does not. It's pretty much like bootleg fare.
That is a
track it
crime.
down.
That is a fucking crime.
You'll learn that with a lot of his filmography. You'll talk about them and see these films and be like, why isn't this just readily available out there? And a fun subnote to this, Sweet Home was a big deal when it came out and it had a lot of merchandise and marketing. And part of its whole tie-in marketing campaign is that Capcom made a video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I thought it was worth mentioning just because that game was sort of an Explore the Mansion, haunted house kind of thing. And years later, they actually drew inspiration from it when they made Resident Evil.
Yep.
If you know the games, one of the big things they kind of used as loading transitions was those doors appearing and then slowly opening as it readied the next room. And that actually goes all the way back to Sweet Home. That was their transitions in that game.
Wow, that's cool.
So it's a awesome link that he has there.
Yeah, this movie needs more love and attention.
And we'll definitely talk about it one day when the right topic rolls up. In 97, he got his first big international acclaim with Cure, which was a psychological horror crime thriller.
Not to be confused with New Wave Goth Band.
No. It's an amazing film, super good. I think there's a UK Blu-ray out for this one.
Nice.
You can track down if you got a Reach and Free player.
Yeah, that's a good one.
2001, he directed Pulse. That's probably what most people are going to know him for.
That's probably his best.
Incredible J-horror film. In 2006, during the J-horror boom here in America, it got a terrible American remake.
I never even watched that piece of crap.
You're better off. I think that spawned 2 sequels even, which I haven't ventured that far. 2012, I wanted to mention this one just because I've seen it. He did a 5-part TV drama called Penance. That actually has a in America Blu-ray release. I think it's streamed on something.
Oh, so that does, but Sweet Home doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can actually check this out. It was a very interesting thing about a group of kids, and when they're in elementary school, one girl dies. She gets abducted and murdered, and the other kids have info about it and see the killer, and they get nervous and afraid they're gonna get in trouble, and that they clam up and don't say anything about it. And then the mother gets very angry at them and kind of says that she puts a curse on them that because they've stayed silent, that'll come back on them. And then each episode is one of the girls after she's grown up, and some sort of misfortune happens that draws them back to that incident.
That sounds pretty cool. I'm going to check that out.
Really cool premise, and I thought it was worth mentioning here because it is a little mini series, so it hits in that same vein of the Stand and all of those Stephen King made for TV miniseries we're talking about.
Nice.
And then the last one I think that's super worth mentioning is his latest work, Wife of a Spy from 2020. That's a historical drama romance that made a lot of acclaim, and it was actually a television film made for the NHK. And I think Netflix has streaming rights for it. It might already be on there. I'm not 100% on that. But when I was doing some research, I saw that pop up.
Nice.
So yeah,
Excellent.
a few films by him to go peek at if you've checked this out and
Yeah,
dig
definitely check out Pulse. If you can only watch one of his films, watch Pulse. Still super relevant today
I've not seen hardly any J horror.
because you're too scared of it.
I kind of was for a while.
I remember that's why you wouldn't watch them.
it. They still get me. Like The Grudge, definitely for sure.
I got hurt one time at a job that I was on, and
Like emotionally or physically.
both actually on that one. But we went to visit Adam, and you guys always went to the now defunct but amazing video store in Louisville, Kentucky, called Wild and Woolly.
R.I.P. Wild and
And
Woolly.
they had like everything. They were like us. It was like your house, but for rent. And I remember
Yeah, it was our mecca for a long time.
Jason and Adam would spend like an hour looking for something, and I was like super hopped up on painkillers, and they were watching Dark Water. And you watched Dark Water and One Missed Call in the same
Nice.
night.
That's a good double bill.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I was laying there like half in and half out, and like tripping balls, and just it was really fucking trippy, and it like was even scarier than it was otherwise because I didn't know what was going on, and I was just drifting in and out.
Nice.
I still vividly remember that because it terrified the shit out of me.
That's hilarious.
I was like, I'm never watching those movies.
One Missed Call was Nakata too, right?
That was Mike, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
Mike. My bad.
Jesus, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Even I knew that. In my drugged out state, I knew that.
This film's crazy. It's got to be Mike. So Seance. Aired in 2000 on Kansai TV, also known as the Kansai Telecasting Corporation, or Contelli for short. I'll hit you with the synopsis. A psychic housewife and her husband become burdened with a kidnapped girl who escaped her assailant. Junko will not let her husband call the hospital or the police for purely selfish reasons. The girl dies while still in their house, and then her ghost begins to haunt the couple.
That gives away way too much of the
Which
plot.
is a terrible synopsis because it kind of gives away everything.
Hey, those of you that just heard that, ignore it.
No, episode's done. Good night, everybody. Good night. Goodbye.
Not like we're about to spoil it anyway.
30
but
minutes. Shortest episode yet.
It's based on a 1961 novel, Seance on a Wet Afternoon, written by Mark McShane, and it also got adapted into a film in 1964 with that same title.
Now, have you seen that film?
I have not, but I did do copious research about the novel, so we could compare and contrast later.
Cool. I do want to watch the original film sometime.
I do know that Kurosawa talked about the other film. He didn't see it at the time he made his version.
Didn't he not know it even existed?
He didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
He just knew about the book. And later, afterwards, he went back and watched it. And he said, I thought it was very interesting, and it was also very faithful to the original novel, and kind of implied that the ghostly aspects that are in this one are less overt,
That's something I kind of want to talk about
In the
when we
original
go
story.
through this movie. Yeah.
which is definitely something we got to talk about. So when it opens, well, we'll establish this first. What genre is this,
I believe this would be horror,
you believe?
supernatural horror.
I think it has a lot of thriller elements, too.
There are thriller elements. Yeah.
Just depends. Do you want it to win an award? Because if you want it to win an award,
be a thriller.
you call it a thriller. If you don't give a shit, it's horror.
Thriller, horror, crime, supernatural. Yeah.
I actually have a fun thing about that, too. When they produced this thing, Kurosawa insisted that they shoot it on film. And he said the reason why is that he was hoping that after it...
Doesn't look like dog shit.
Well, he said he hoped after it aired that film festivals would come and ask to screen it. And luckily that was what happened. But he knew that wasn't like a normal TV drama situation. He kind of just got lucky that they let it pass and fly that way.
Nice. That's a commonality that all of our films have. They were
Yep.
all shot on 35 millimeter.
Which kind of bucks the trend for a lot of made-for-TV movies.
Yeah, but I mean, God, that's the way it should be.
I mean, if you have money. Yeah, that's the way it should be. Otherwise, they're like, figure it out, man. It's like Corman.
Yeah, I mean, just compare like even this movie, Seance, to something like Rose Matter, that TV movie, the Stephen King.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks like barf on
I thought it was
a
Rose
dog
Red.
turd. Whichever, I don't know. They're the same damn. I don't know which one is it.
I don't know.
Rose Red, Rose Matter.
I think it's
Those
Rose
are two
Red.
different ones, aren't they? Rose Red was a TV one. Rose Matter was another book he wrote.
Rose Red was the miniseries that was basically The Haunting, but his version.
But not good. Anyway, it looks like shit is my point, whereas this movie looks awesome. Hey, okay, if anyone really wants to die on that hill, come at me.
You're gonna get some hate mail.
Jason's planting the flag. Who wants to fight about Rose Red? Right in. Talk to us. I'm so glad we found a movie that you're like, just stuck on. It's amazing. So Seance opens, and we've got this graduate student talking to his professor, and he's clearly working on some kind of project or paper, and they're sort of like talking about the intricacies of that.
Mm-hmm. And I found this opening to be a little misleading. Like, I think it's intentionally so. Mm-hmm. It's just not a very traditional type of opening. Because you're thinking this guy is going to be our lead character, and he really isn't.
He's very ancillary to everything that goes on.
Yeah.
But they're talking about different, like, psychic research studies and supernatural things, mediumship.
Doppelgangers.
Yeah, doppelgangers. And it seems like, he's just researching the paranormal, it seems like. But they're clearly psychologists. They set that up. Mm-hmm. While this is going on, it keeps cutting to, like, a waiting room with benches. Mm-hmm. And I love this scene because when it first comes in, the room is, like, empty. And you think you see a person at the back of the room near the door. But it's kind of hard to make out, and you can't really see very clearly. And it immediately has that, like, J-horror vibe of, like, is there something there or isn't there?
Yeah.
And what we later see is that is Junko Sato, our main character, played by Jun Fubuki. Mm-hmm. And she's just kind of there hanging out waiting for this grad student who is, I believe, Hayakawa.
Hayasaka?
Hayasaka, yeah, Hayasaka. Hayasaka is his name.
Yeah, she's holding it looks like a compact or something, like some old antique compact.
And there's some subtle weirdness where it seems like something's happening with her, but we don't really know. We see some cold air come out when she breathes.
You do distinctly see a shape behind her at one point.
Mm-hmm. Kind of in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
Eventually, Hayasaka comes out to speak with her and sort of explains that his the professor that he works with is like not so keen on this research and doesn't really want to meet with her. And then they kind of talk about this compact because he asks her if she sensed anything from it. And we learned that that belonged to, was it his grandmother?
His grandmother.
His grandmother that passed away.
Mm-hmm. And she says something about how it was it a bad death or a violent death or something like that? And he says, yeah, she committed suicide.
That's how it always goes in J-horror.
Wow. Yeah, it's either suicide or a ghost, right?
Yeah.
But I think immediately it sets an interesting distinction because they've shown us clearly supernatural things. But then the way she talks to him on the reading of the compact, it's very much that sort of like the showmanship style of mediumship where like...
The whole code reading thing.
Yeah, she's doing like guided questions to kind of like jump to the answers.
Like that asshole who had that TV show. What was that dude's name? He talked to the dead for you and stuff. Anyway.
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
I do know what you're talking about.
Right, I just don't remember the prick's name, but it's okay.
But she heads home. We meet some other characters. Notably, there's Koji... Sato.
Koji Sato.
Koji Sato, yep.
Yeah, he is a sound tech.
Names. Yeah, he's a sound tech. I loved all the scenes with him at his job.
Yeah.
They're just like, do you have a jet plane? Or first it's like, do you have an airplane? It's like, no, it needs to be higher pitched like a jet plane. But yeah, it kind of just establishes his life. He works at some sort of,
It's like a university or something. I don't know.
They're working on documentaries. I know they mentioned that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And yeah, he's just a sound guy. Mm-hmm. We're introduced to him. He's got this big trunk that he packs around. That's definitely going to be important later.
Mm-hmm. Camera lingers on it a little bit.
Yep.
Remember this trunk?
Some good setup.
He goes home and his wife is having a session with someone. She's doing a little mini seance, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the room is dimmed and he kind of walks in and just goes off on his own. This is clearly something that happens all the time.
Yeah, he just leaves. He's like, okay.
All right,
She's doing her thing.
Don't worry. I'll just be in the... Don't mind the farting over here. Just be in the corner.
At the one part, like, she ducks out for a minute and sees him, and she's like, oh, sorry, I've got someone. And she's just like, there's pizza in the fridge. And he's just like, yeah.
Yeah.
That scene was very awkward for me because I was like, I can't tell if they like each other. If this is something that he's had a conversation with her about, like, can you warn me? Like, before you do a seance, like
put a tie on a door or something.
Yeah, before you do a seance and I accidentally walk in on it and it's super fucking awkward, could you just do something?
Yeah, so he goes to this like back room and lays down, And at one point, you see his breath too.
Yep,
So,
and
you
it's
know,
while the
something's up.
seance is going on.
It's kind of a Sixth Sense sort of thing, I think. Ghost around and gets cold or something.
But her seance for this woman, she's trying to contact it's a deceased husband, right, or a boyfriend or something.
Yeah, boyfriend, husband, something.
A lover.
And she's worried about moving on and how he'll feel. Mm-hmm. And it's very much that the whole seeking comfort kind of thing.
Yeah, and this could easily be something that a sham medium would do.
Because again, she says she's going to channel him, and she kind of just bows her head for a little bit.
Yeah, it's not. She couldn't perform. So it can't always. You can't always just make it happen.
So I do have a question about that.
Yeah. Huh?
This is not related to the movie, but it's about what you said.
About not being able to perform.
No.
I mean, they make drugs for that.
Yeah,
Isolate that.
Have you tried pornography?
So when
Role
you say
playing.
it's a sham medium,
Sure.
the proper thing for someone to do would be to go on with their life. They're the one that's living. They're the ones that need to find comfort in the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. So does it make the medium a sham if they give them the push that they need to do what they need to do?
There's a lot of mediums that argue that's kind of their point, is that they give comfort to people.
That's what psychologists are for.
Yeah.
And educated counselors, not people who propagate ignorance and...
This is true, but doesn't religion give you the same false hope?
Yep.
Yikes.
Well, I mean, I'm not knocking.
Yeah, but a religion also shouldn't charge you.
I'm not knocking anyone that does find it.
If you're paying for your religion, someone's doing it wrong.
I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to give 10%. You're supposed. That's what you're missing the point, Jason. You're supposed
No,
to do
I'm
this.
actually not, but, whatever.
So I mean, yeah, I guess.
I think tithing is a choice. You don't have to.
I guess
They're not
under
going to
the-
say get out of church if you don't tithe.
That depends on the people
It's
who
not
run the church.
Scientology.
I guess under
Yeah.
the guise. I guess if you were specifically lying to them in order to comfort them, I guess that is in a very moral gray area. But yeah, sorry.
I don't like it, is my point. But anyway, I digress.
I do enjoy a lot of paranormal topics. So I will say on this, I think this kind of mediumship is it's so hard to cut that line of what's legit and what's not, and can you ever even know or prove? And I think that's
Yes.
something. I think that's something the film wants you to think about as you're watching it.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I'll just go ahead and say it. I kind of wish the movie was a bit more ambiguous. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting. But anyway, please, let us continue.
So we get a sense of the Sato's home life. The very, very cold.
Weird.
Well, it's comfortable. It's normal. It's like what Koji says later, is that there's no one more ordinary than they are.
Yeah, he just kind of
Except
works.
most people's wives aren't psychic.
He kind of just works his job. She's wanting to make a.
God, I hope not.
I was thinking the very same thing, hoping that our wives aren't psychic. Oh shit!
She kind of seems to want to make this whole seance stuff like a business,
Yeah.
but it's clearly not going that great. And one of the first incidents we have is that she decides that she's going to get a job at a diner, just to kind of help out with the finances and stuff.
Yep. And we also get a quick scene of a predator on the playground who approaches this
very
little girl
awkward scene, yeah.
wearing a green dress with probably the greatest. I mean, if you're going to abduct someone, you may as well ask this.
The brass balls on this guy.
Is your family rich?
Well, he doesn't want to waste his time.
Right.
You know?
He doesn't want to get a poor kid. His family can't pay up.
Yeah. Listen, I need to know what kind of car do your parents drive? You're not aware of their financial situation. What kind of house do you live in?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, at this playground, just in broad daylight, and there's other kids there and everything, he just tells her, oh, your mom's at the hospital. She's been hurt. I'm gonna take you to her. Come with me.
Isn't that how most abductions happen, though?
Yeah, no, it's crazy that feeling of how that happens.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
holy shit, man.
We saw how it happened in Poughkeepsie Tapes.
Yeah.
Right. And that was a real documentary made in real time.
Yeah, of course it is. They have a dismemberment expert. You don't make them documentary.
You can't fake that. That's not the sort of thing you would just make up.
Next, you're going to... Oh, God.
Blair Witch wasn't really there.
Oh my god.
Jason, man.
Yeah, so he gets the girl. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to cut this episode off because you're just being an asshole.
He takes off with the girl who he hopes has a rich family. Take off in a car. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, I think Junko's working at a restaurant, right?
Yep. Now she's at the restaurant.
This is a pretty cool scene.
I like this scene a lot. A businessman comes in. He very like aggressively gets set to a table.
Yeah, you can tell he's an asshole right away.
Folds out all his stuff, covers the whole table with papers.
Yeah.
Is like very short with everyone.
He's your typical Japanese asshole businessman.
And what Junko starts to notice is there's a woman in the booth with him.
I actually busted out laughing at this scene just because the way it plays. Like, she's getting him his coffee and everything and comes back. And then, like, there's the woman. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I just imagine her being like, is she going to order? Like,
what would you like, miss?
Would you like coffee too? I wasn't aware that this was a booth for two, but okay.
Well, I mean, her face is like, her eyes are like invisible. Like, they're not there. It's all fuzzy.
And it's got the whole J-horror. Like, at first, it's the long hair over the face. Yeah. You can't really make it out. But this entity seems to just be stalking this businessman.
Mm-hmm. Connected to him. You get the impression that perhaps he murdered her or something.
I like the vagary of it, because it's like, is this just randomly haunting him? Did he do something? Mm-hmm. Like, what's the source of this? And we never know, but it unsettles Junko.
Yeah.
And she ends up quitting. She can't take it. It seems like if she's just going to be out somewhere, this is just a thing that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. No matter what she does.
Right. Makes it hard to work.
It's interesting because I like the way that scene works because you don't necessarily see anything nefarious happening like between that spirit and this guy. Right.
It's all inference. Yeah.
But it's also just that connection that whatever he's done, that he's taking this with him through the rest of his life.
Oh, she's definitely some mistress or something that he had killed.
Well, you're
I got this whole backstory.
You can take it. You can take it a lot of ways.
Yeah,
that's what's good about it.
But it's. I thought that's one of the things that was interesting about this is it's not always a haunting. Mm-hmm. Like I don't get the impression that she was so much as haunting this man, as so much as her essence was now attached to him. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that haunting?
Yes, but it depends on what the spirit's doing to you. Like, is it haunting you or is it just attached to you forever?
Just there.
Because to me, a haunting's like an active.
Yeah, like
the spirit is doing something to try to get a result.
Yeah, this is, and that's almost creepier to me. Like that, it's just always there. That you're never. I could get really super like.
It's like Thetans.
Yeah, I could get really into.
Oh my god!
Into like how that plays psychologically, but how that plays into that character's reactions too, and how he treats everyone else. Mm-hmm. You know that he'll never be free of that.
Right. Maybe that's why he's so mad and terse with people is because he's being haunted.
Well, he can't actually get a waitress to not spill coffee on him. So he's got important business papers, and she's trying to spill coffee.
Business
but it's a scene that, to me, it highlights a lot of what I love about his filmmaking style, because I think he'll be very subtle in a lot of scenes, and in that little like subtle moment, he actually says a lot in the end when you get through it.
There's a whole lot of this movie that actually reminded me of Occult. Like, I think they would make a really fun double bill.
I could see that, yeah.
Because Occult almost has that same, these things are attached to you.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing, you know, like they may not be trying to harm you, but you are connected now.
Yeah, at least this movie doesn't have any questionable CG at the end.
Well, and Occult 2 has that question of, is it real or not?
Yeah.
Through a lot of the film. So yeah, the diner doesn't work out. She's kind of back to square one.
And we see Koji back at work, and his coworker hears something weird on the tape. Mm-hmm. The one that he took to home.
Yeah.
Right?
While the seance was going on.
While the seance was going on. And you can't really hear what it is, but it's like some voice.
the guy that notices it thinks it's mumbling.
It's EVP.
And it almost makes that suggestion of like, could it be EVP?
Right.
But Koji just writes it off and says, probably just like picked up some ambient noise.
Yeah, CB radio.
Yeah, CB radio or something.
Some truckers out there.
Breaker 19, buddy.
And he basically says like, yeah, I can scrub it out. It won't be a big deal.
Uh-huh.
That would be such a great like parody moment. Like you're picking, I think I hear something. Breaker 19.
You got Jerry Reed on the soundtrack.
And I think it's in this earlier part, and it might have already happened before the diner scenes, but one of their scenes at home I really liked. He's just about to leave for work, and he mentions to Junko that his documentary is going to air that he worked on, and he won't be able to watch it because he's going to be stuck at work, and he wonders if she will, just to tell him how it goes. And he says that he's like really proud of his sound design, but they're not going to be able to hear it because they just have like a little crappy TV.
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, let's buy a new one." I'm like, no.
Yeah. you can tell they don't have the most money.
I know they got a huge house. That's a pretty big house from what you see in most Japanese films. It's like a mansion. Of course, I guess they're not in Tokyo or something either.
Maybe they inherited that house.
It's more rural, I guess.
Yeah, it could be like a family house.
Why don't you infer a lot onto their personal finances, Jason?
Oh, excuse the fuck out of me.
This episode's going to end with me and Jason just fighting on the table. Rolling around.
I think in Michael's defense, there's scenes later that support the idea that they're not doing so great financially.
This is true. You're right.
And maybe I'm just projecting backwards.
And it's obviously is a rural area, so the prices probably aren't that crazy high either.
Jason's going to break down into Japanese real estate exposure.
Yeah. Let me look at the numbers here. It's 2000.
Our two kind of stories here, the Satos and this abducted girl, kind of crash together when Hayasaka comes to Junko and kind of wants to involve her with the police. It's sort of like can her mediumship help them get a break in the case?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that on TV before.
Yes, it's a common story.
Yeah. I think Jennifer Love Hewitt was in that, right? The Ghost Whisperer.
Well, before this, though, is the one pivotal thing that happens while Koji's out recording sound out in the forest.
I like that scene a lot.
Is when the little girl has obviously escaped her abductor. He's chasing after her. She comes along and she sees Koji, but she doesn't say anything. I guess for some reason she's mistrustful of, men.
She might just be afraid to make a sound.
Yeah. So then she goes and crawls in his big equipment case.
That's such a fun scene. Just the way it's left sitting there.
Yeah.
And then you just see the case like, wow, I can realize I'm making wobbling motions, and this is a podcast.
And they've already kind of set up that he lugs this thing everywhere, so when he goes to leave, he just locks it up and throws it in the truck.
Mm-hmm. I guess she's scared, being quiet, doesn't want to say anything, doesn't know what's going on.
Trauma.
So it's one of those, this is where I really got, the TV thriller thing, where there's, this dramatic mishap
it's
that
like
occurs.
Hitchcock's bomb under the table. Something is going to happen. They don't know about it, but we do.
So Junko agrees to help the police, and it's kind of one of those things, this is her big break, if she can...
They have caught the kidnapper. They have him in custody. Right, and then they go to Junko for help. Yes.
Yeah, to find the kid, because he doesn't know where the kid is. And this is her big break, right? Because if she can do this, she'll be famous.
Yeah, they'll actually acknowledge her powers.
Mm-hmm. Business will take off. It'll fix all their problems.
Right.
So then there's a great scene of them back in the house and the kid's in the trunk and they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the sort of the tension. It is what you're saying, the Hitchcock thing.
Right.
We know it's there.
They cut back to the trunk every now and then. Yeah. And it's a good couple days before they get back to that trunk.
Yeah.
And the next day, Tazaki, Koji's coworker, who complained about those weird sounds, he doesn't show up at work. Mm-hmm. And this kind of doesn't go anywhere. This is a plot thread that kind of stops here. But it's also kind of interesting because it's whatever he heard freaked him out so much.
He didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
Or he just fucking hated his job.
I know, he seemed to like it okay.
Now who's reading extra stuff into the plot?
Yeah, maybe you hate your job, huh?
I don't have a job.
Oh, right.
I hate mine, but I just assumed it was the sound on the tape because that seemed more relevant to the story.
Yeah.
There was actually some administrative drama happening that he couldn't take anymore, and he was yes, it coincided.
And
with
that
the
tape
sound.
just was a straw that broke the camel's back.
But what you didn't see was that upper management came down an hour later and changed his benefits.
Nice.
So eventually they discover the kid. Was it they hear noises, right? And I think that's what draws them to the trunk.
Well, it's a couple of things that happen too. Is that Junko has a conversation with Koji about how she wants something fun to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she says nothing fun ever happens for us.
And you get that reinforcement that they're in a rut or whatever and just kind of bored. And I think she gets a feeling that there's something in the trunk because she goes to it.
Oh wait, there's that neat scene of she's in the living
the light in the shadows,
and the camera shows behind her out the door through the hallway is the rest of the house, and it's completely pitch black, and then slowly it illuminates to be a bright light back there, and then it dims again.
like it's trying to get her attention or something.
Mm. I like that scene quite a bit.
Yeah, and then he opens the case and the girl's in there, and they freak. As you would.
And it's an amazing freak out too, because they immediately jump to she's dead, and they we gotta call the police. No, call a hospital first.
Yeah, then they stop and they're like, well, what are we gonna tell them? Mm-hmm. So that's mistake number one that this couple makes.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna actually tell them? So I have this case, It's going to sound weird.
Well, they've got the perp in custody. You say, hey, I was out there recording sounds. I had my equipment. I had my box. The girl obviously climbed in there.
That's not going to fly that well.
It's better than trying to do what they do.
It is the truth, though, so I don't know. Truth will set you free, as they say.
That's what they say. They're discussing it.
Yeah, they're discussing it, and then they kind of check the kid, and the kid's okay, actually.
Yeah, she's climbing up the steps. And you get the impression, because it's almost like a Ringu thing at first, because she's kind of crawling with her hair down. You're like, oh, fuck, she's already dead and haunting him or something. But she's still alive.
And so this is where Koji still is very much like, we need to report this, turn her over, be done with this. And this is where Junko gets this wild idea.
Mistake number 2.
Mistake number 2. She decides that they should just keep the kid a little while and let her whole medium thing play out with the police.
See, it's even better now that the girl's alive, because she can say, yes, I crawled into this case.
Yeah.
These people saved me.
She can affirm their story.
That's when you definitely call the authorities.
And I don't know, man.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, come on, Michael. Well, they're going to say, oh, the kid can't speak for itself, and what? I don't know.
I'm trying to piss Jason off now, just enough to get him to throw something at me.
So, yeah, Junko wants to do this whole, play the medium thing out. We'll orchestrate them finding the kid, and then that'll still achieve my goal. And Koji's super against it, and she kind of nails him on this point of, let me have a dream just for once.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurts him in a way that he reluctantly gives in.
Yep. Well, it's a low blow.
Oh, yeah. Very. It's very. She's saying, "Hey, I'm not happy here. This is just okay. You're fine.
We're eating cold pizza.
Hey, what's wrong with cold pizza?
Nothing.
Fuck, that's a good time." Yeah, she totally guilt trips him.
Did you wonder what Japanese pizza was like when they started talking about it?
No,
I did.
Wait, they give you something? It's got wasabi sauce on it.
No, I just wondered. I just want to try. I want to go to a Japanese pizza joint now.
There's a really big chain. What's it called? Pizza La, I think, in Japan.
I just want to know, how does it compare to American pizza? How does it compare to Italian pizza?
If we have any Japanese listeners out there, please let us know.
No, we lost them on the Pinku episode.
No, we gained some, I betcha.
Come on.
They were like...
Japanese are cool.
They were like, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Nah. They like that stuff.
So they kind of stash the kid upstairs.
Yeah. And she wakes up and sees Koji and starts screaming her head off. Because she's probably like, oh, this person's abducted me. Maybe the same guy, maybe someone else. I don't know. And he does not handle it well.
No, he just wants her to be quiet.
Yeah. And he's basically laying on top of her and smothering her to make her quiet.
Which makes her pass out.
Yeah. Puts her in a sleeper hold. It's really uncalled for.
Is that not how you guys keep your children quiet? I don't understand.
Michael, do we need to make some calls after this episode?
Yeah, I'm a little worried here.
So
this episode's off the rails.
Phase 1 of the plan. They're going to plant her shoes somewhere to kind of begin the process of the mediumship is working.
Yep. She'll say, "Oh, I sensed something there, something that belonged to the girl, perhaps." They go look and they'll find the shoes, is what she's thinking, right?
So they look up and find an abandoned factory, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Drive out there late at night, plant the shoes, and then here's point 3, Jason, to your thing. They're just holding the shoes in their bare hands.
Yep, sure.
Their DNA is all the fuck over this entire situation.
Yep. And also, Koji admits that the girl saw his face.
Yeah.
And will ruin their plans. and Junko freaks out. Why didn't you tell me that?
Which is interesting. After we finish our main stuff, we're going to talk about the novel too.
Okay.
The differences here are very interesting to me now that I know the plot of the novel.
Okay.
So yeah, they plant the shoes. She tells the police. They go. They find the shoes.
Well, they say they're going to take the girl to the hospital that night too. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking she won't really remember anything, and I guess they're planning on she somehow wandered into this hospital after being in this old building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she even tells the inspector that she has a feeling that she's going to be found alive, that she's still alive. Mm-hmm.
However,
is that mistake number 3? I think was.
We're up to 10 now.
Yeah,
they're done on the mistake. However, things don't go to plan because the police show up at their house
while the girl's still there.
While the girl's still there, they haven't had time to. They were going to do that the next night. Mm-hmm. They haven't had a chance to work that out yet. and they're just doing the police thing of asking questions. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because you get a bit from Hayasaka too about like he asks her some like more pressing questions, and she's kind of surprised. And he's like, "Well, I am a psychologist. I notice things."
Yeah, like you're being awful aggressive and telling us about these shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just comparing to her like prior sessions with him, she's like much more like, "I know it. I know this on the spot." Da da da. And so while they're talking to her, and she's kind of trying to do the whole medium thing again, Koji is upstairs with the kid.
Trying to keep her quiet.
By
smothering her.
Because she wakes up and starts to scream. Mm-hmm. And so he grabs a pillow, shoves it on her face. They're starting to leave and end their conversation, and it's just this very tense moment of like they're ending the conversation, they're going out, and it keeps cutting back upstairs. Mm-hmm. And he's literally choking her to death. And it's like, will this resolve soon enough?
Right.
And it doesn't.
Spoiler, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, they choke her to death.
Mm-hmm. And he says she's sleeping, which he probably thought she really was.
Mm-hmm. Well, she did the first time.
Yeah, she sleeps. She's a good sleeper, I tell you. And that night, the power goes out. Mm-hmm. And they go to investigate to check on the girl. And the window... Okay, this is where I got a little confused, because the window's open, right? Mm-hmm. And the girl's on the floor now.
Yeah.
Was she trying to get out the window? Was she still alive and, like, fell or something? Or was like a supernatural thing, like she's dead?
I think it was the implication she was trying to climb out of the window and fell.
Right. So maybe it wasn't technically Koji who killed her.
And that's one flaw, I think, in the film, is there's a little too much of like...
Yeah.
Did they, don't they, with this part?
Right. It should have been more obvious, more direct.
But yeah, she's dead. The plan has totally gone awry.
Yep.
They have a big dramatic fallout, and there was a line I wrote down because I really loved it here, where she's worried about, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to work this out? And he tells her... She's, like, trying to, like, still keep the story going somehow with the police. Sorry. And he tells her, you had your dream. It's time to get back to living. It's all we have. Mm-hmm. And that was like, oh, that's such a powerful moment.
Yep, it is.
That the whole situation, like, comes full circle back to that.
Yep. So they take the girl out and bury her in the woods.
Like you do.
As you do.
God damn.
And again, no gloves, no...
Yeah.
Don't wrap her up or anything.
These aren't professional killers, man.
Obviously.
Which, when she first baits the plan, one of the things he tells her is, we can't beat the police. There's no way you're going to outsmart them. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, it'll be perfect.
Right.
We can do this.
Fucking psychics, man.
Is that our takeaway from this episode?
I think it is.
Jason hates psychics.
It's psychics.
Clearly.
And immediately the haunting starts.
Oh, yeah. Shit goes crazy.
Jun goes home the next day, and yeah, the girl's spirit appears. Mm-hmm. It's kind of creepy when she's just standing in the corner, too. I like that.
Yeah, just out of frame, kind of. Mm-hmm. Very effective, very classic, like J-horror, Ring the Grudge kind of vibe.
And Junko just kind of matter-of-factly mentions this to Koji when he gets home.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're being haunted now.
And then what they decide to do a thing where they're going out to eat at like random places they don't normally go to.
Yeah, they go to a hotel and stuff.
And one of my favorite scenes in the film happens here where I think Junko's staying at the hotel and Koji goes back to their house. And he's doing different stuff, and then he goes into the backyard and he sees seemingly his doppelganger sitting there in one of the lawn chairs.
Yeah.
And it really messes with him.
Yeah.
And he goes and gets a can of gasoline, pours it on it, sets it on fire.
Yeah. That's what I'd do if I saw my doppelganger. There can be only one motherfucker.
Well, what I think's interesting is when you go back to that opening scene, and you may miss it because you just it seems like incidental conversation that doesn't matter. But when they're discussing doppelgangers, what Hayasaka says is that often it's thought that when you see your doppelganger, that's like a premonition of your death.
Yep.
So that was an interesting callback, I thought.
I mean, that's why you kill it with
fire, apparently. Yeah, he sets the thing on fire. It doesn't move. It doesn't talk. It doesn't do anything. It just there and burns. Okay, what's with that doll thing?
The doll?
In the room where the girl died, he's sitting there, and then this like doll-looking thing with the green dress like the girl comes out. I mean, it's obviously a doll, and he's hitting it.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
I think that's just him losing his cool.
So was it like a haunted thing? Was the ghost making the doll move?
I think you could read it that way if you wanted.
Well, how would you read it?
I actually have another interpretation of this film. I don't know how much of this is actually supernatural. We'll get into that.
See, I was going to go that way too, but okay, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah, so they start losing their shit. They can't take the haunting. The guilt's building up. And eventually the police turn up again.
Uh-huh.
Wanting to talk to them. Being very pointed in their questions about what they're asking Junko.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like Junko's at the table with the detective, and then Koji's kind of sitting off to the side, and his face, like the look he has, is just like defeat.
Yeah, it's like he knows the game.
He knows it's over.
And she's trying to do this fake seance thing.
And yeah, she starts trying to do the fake seance, the mediumship stuff.
Yeah, channeling the girl, saying she's in the ground.
And
yeah, because we see the cops find the body.
Yeah,
and they mention that she died recently. And they've had the guy, in custody for a few days now, so he couldn't have done it.
And then she starts trying to weave a tale, and then Koji just kind of snaps and says it's over.
Yeah, just give it up. It's over. Of course, there were also before that there was that creepy scene with him at work.
Oh yeah,
and the case was behind him and opened up, and the girl comes out.
That was very effective.
All rotted looking.
I liked it too, where it's like he's there and everyone's there working, and then he goes in that sound booth and it kind of pans, and then you see from within the sound booth out, and there's no one out there anymore. They just like all vanished. Yeah. All very subtle, all very spooky.
Yep. That's pretty much where it ends.
Yeah, it ends like right in that moment of the revelation of the cops knowing they've been caught. We don't really get to see the fallout of everything. And then isn't there a bit of wrap up too with like the professor and the grad student? Don't they talk a little bit more, I think?
No, that's where it ends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was a line I liked, and now I don't remember the scene where it came from.
Was it when the inspector's talking to the professor?
That's what it is, yeah. And they say, does hell exist? It does if you think it does. It doesn't if you think it doesn't. Because I think that says a lot to like the guilt they were going through,
right,
and what was happening.
Right.
So, so that's the film. I think it's a very simple plot.
It is.
But that's okay, because it's
simple can be great.
Well.
Yeah. Okay, so
things we should talk about.
What do we need to talk about here?
First thing we should talk about, I think, is the novel, just for some context and for some fun.
Okay.
How close is this to the original novel? There's actually quite a few deviations. And I think that's clear when you look at like what Kurosawa himself said about like, oh, the other film, it was spot on to the novel. And then he kind of took it in a different direction. So this is like real quick rundown on like differences. So in the original, the husband has an extreme case of asthma and can't work. And instead he's an assistant to his wife and for the seances. And that's the only money that they're getting in.
That's interesting. That makes their situation a bit more desperate.
Yeah. There's an additional subplot with the wife where one of the spirits she regularly channels is supposed to be
her lover.
They had a child and it died in birth, and she channels up the child, and that's like one of her spirits that she consults to help her.
That also would bring into why she would want to keep the child as well.
So in the novel, another big thing is that the way this whole kidnapping plot, it's actually kind of simpler in a way in the novel in that it involves less people. The wife comes up with the idea and convinces the husband to go and abduct the daughter of a wealthy couple.
Yeah.
Oh, so they actually do the abducting.
Wow. And they stage it as a thing that we're going to get ransom money and it'll improve her credibility as a medium.
Damn. So they are straight up bad.
Straight up bad.
Okay.
They abduct the girl, and then the wife pretends to be a nurse to the girl and says that she's sick and they're going to be taking care of her for a little bit, and then they'll let her go back home. And that's kind of their cover story for everything.
Okay.
However, as they do this whole ruse, the girl starts becoming sick. Like, literally, she gets sick.
Oops.
And it's pretty severe, and so the husband wants to take her to a doctor, and that they start to fight and have a rift. And in the novel, it kind of builds up that the wife is, like, slowly sort of losing her grip. And eventually she comes to this conclusion that their child that she channels wants the little girl to be his friend. And
like forever friend?
Yeah, forever friend. Okay. And she tries to get the husband to kill her.
Damn.
So
that sounds pretty cool.
It ramps up. And he kind of takes her out into the woods, and you don't really know what's happening. And then eventually the police show up. They want her to have a seance to find the girl. And then during the seance, she seems to get possessed and starts confessing everything. Mm-hmm. And it leaves you with that question of, like, was she possessed or was it just the guilt?
Right.
And in the end, you find out that the husband couldn't bring himself to kill the girl, and he had just, like, left her out in the woods where they were hiding the ransom money. And so the police are able to go and pick her up, and she's safe.
Oh, that's nice.
But, of course, they are caught in their crime.
Right. Interesting. I want to watch that movie now.
It's quite different in its execution, notably in that, like, the supernatural side is, like, completely subtle the whole way through. Mm-hmm. There's no, like, overt hauntings or anything. It's all coming from the wife.
Also, with a novel, the whole, unreliable narrator thing is easier to do than it is with a movie. Mm-hmm.
So I think the big difference is the fact that in the novel, they are, like, the engineers of their own downfall. And in the film, it's like, at first they're victims of circumstance. But then in that moment, they make a lot of bad ideas and bad decisions.
Oh, yeah.
That plunge them over the edge and into the depths.
Yeah.
I almost kind of wish you hadn't have told me about the novel, though.
Do you think that,
why?
In contrast, the novel's maybe stronger?
Yeah.
An idea?
I do, too.
Yeah. If I hadn't have known that, now I'm like...
I want to see that. Oh, but the original movie based on it, Seance on a Wet Afternoon, is streaming on HBO Max.
Interesting.
Oh, so pair that up.
I'm going to watch that.
But no, it just kind of like... Seance goes in a lot of weird directions that don't always feel coherent. And I don't always understand... Like, I told you that I was like, why are you doing that? Like, just... Why is this going here? Like, why is this part of the story? And... I don't know. It almost feels like sometimes it's two different movies. Like multiple people had input as to what they wanted this movie to be, and it was never one thing. Does that make sense?
I guess I can see that. I think it's pretty coherent.
Yeah, I think you're wrong, Michael. Sorry.
And there it is.
And it would not work better as a play either.
Do you guys think this movie would work better as a play?
I actually think this would be a good one as a play.
Yeah, actually,
to be honest.
Fuck you both.
Got
both of you.
small cast, minimal locations, a lot of drama, a lot of like heady stuff going on.
A Brimstone would have worked as a fucking play.
No, hard to disagree.
God damn, I hate you all.
The other thing I think we really need to talk about is Junko really a medium?
I watched it 1.5 times. I watched it again to kind of go through and look at some of the important parts, looking to see if it was mostly from her point of view. And you could argue that because, okay, let's say that Junko, because she's the only one who's seeing this stuff. She's the only psychic. Quotation marks I'm making wildly in the air. And Koji does see things eventually, but is that just his guilt? Is that just everything?
See, that was my thing, because he never sees anything until the girl dies.
Right.
Before that point, the only time we see anything supernatural with him, there's the audio on the tape.
Which someone else does listen to. But it could be some sort of interference.
He himself brushes off. And then when he comes home the one time, we see the cold breath.
Right.
Which, of course, we know in supernatural situations, a lot of times with ghosts and spirits, they think that, like, cold air...
Cold spots and all that stuff.
Cold spots happen.
So, I mean, that's pretty... I don't think that's up to interpretation.
I do. So
maybe it was really cold in that room. I don't know.
So I do think it's obvious that she saw things because she did see whoever was there with the businessman. So,
or is she just that?
Or was that person actually there?
Well, so a slight personal anecdote that made me think about this.
Are you about to tell us that you're psychic?
Uh-oh.
I know this lady who, when I met her, she had said some things about my grandfather who'd passed that she shouldn't know because she didn't know me and she didn't know my family at all, like from Adam. And she said, and I was like, how do you know that? And she was like, she just got kind of weird. She was like, oh, she's like, well, did he like to drink coffee a lot? And I was like, yeah, but that's like something that a lot of old people would do. And she's like,
typically, yeah.
But she's like, well, she's like, I saw a guy over here, like we were in my grandparents' house, and she said, I saw a guy who was sitting in this room drinking coffee and smoking a cigarette and watching TV. And I was like, the fuck? Because, and the room that she pointed to used to be the den that my grandfather sat and drank coffee, smoked cigarettes, and watched TV. And it hadn't been that den in years. Like, it was actually my house that I lived in. They had not lived there. So, come to talk to her, she saw things. But she never pursued that. Like,
she never tried to monetize it like
exactly.
Zuko.
She accepted, and she told me that she accepted that she's just sees things that other people don't. And that sometimes those things give her, like, warning. Maybe she should not be in this situation. But she refused to talk about it with people. Like, she would say things that were comforting. You know, like, for me, when she was like, no, your grandfather has seen, like, his presence is still here. You know, like, I still feel it, and it feels fine. It feels comforting. Whether that's what she felt or not, I don't know. But that's all she said. It was never like, I can speak to him or anything like that.
Right. For $50, so.
Yeah.
You know, that gets into another interesting area of paranormal stuff with, like, the stone tape theory, or that idea that, like, the stuff you do can leave, like, an impression on a place and almost replay, like, a tape or something.
And which was really interesting, just the way she perceived things. So it kind of made me think, like, I've known people who've said, like, yeah, I've seen things and it seemed weird and I'm not sure if I saw it. And so it makes me think that maybe this character is the type that she does those things. She is either blessed or cursed, however you want to look at it, to where she sees things that other people don't, and she decided to take it in a direction where she could exploit it.
I think that exploitation is why I have a hard time fully buying into, like, she's just this, like, bomb-ass psychic that can notice everything.
Right, like...
Because she's got this boring life, she's clearly not happy with it, she's bored.
And maybe this is her one thing. Like, the one thing that maybe she's always had in her life, that she sees things associated with people, and she thinks, well, this is how I'm going to do better. You know, that may be a stretch, and I probably went far away from my original anecdote from that, but it kind of, but those two kind of played together for me. Like,
Sure.
That this person that I knew, she saw these things and was like, well, I just don't really talk about them, you know, like, I don't think that's for me.
I'm much more inclined to believe that than the people that do, like, the room readings that charge like $100 a ticket.
Right.
And the only reason, like, that I even slightly believe this lady is because the things she said in passing, I'm like, the fuck do you know that? Like, that is something very personal. Like, I'm not going to share what she said, but, like, that's something very personal that I just now met you. And you just met us. And it's like, you shouldn't fucking know that. And it was almost like when she said it, she was like, uh-oh.
And it's when you have stuff like that it really is sort of like meaningful confirmation in a way, because that's the sort of stuff that, like, you couldn't cold read that out of a person in conversation.
And I think it turns as to how she continued her relationship with me. It was no longer like, didn't matter what questions I asked. Like, no, we're not talking about that. Like, that what she saw was what she saw, and that's what she read, and that's we're done. Like, not going to exploit you anymore. But I think in this situation, like, it was almost like her exploitation led to their downfall.
Well, did she say anything about all those bodies underneath her house?
That's none of your goddamn business, and none of hers. So no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
if she's smart, she fucking won't.
I think ultimately you can read it either way, and there's a lot to support.
It can go either way. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the film, is that it teases both, but it really leaves it up to you.
I don't think that the film was about supernatural. Like,
no.
It's a plot point, but I don't think that's what you're supposed to take away from it at all. I think it was... I think the issue is that they took a really good story and then tried to fit it into the J-horror mold.
I think it still works, though. I mean, I think it's still a good story and a good movie. The original novel might be a little bit more compelling in certain ways. But
we'll get to this, but honestly, I was just bored.
Well, we can get into it now.
Oh, yeah, I think do we have any other fun things to toss out? Any notes?
I'm good. I just want to reiterate that Sweet Home needs a freaking Blu-ray release.
It does, please.
Jason, the quicker you understand that studio executives know what's best for us.
Right.
And if you would just stop trying to impose your will on them.
You're right. The billionaires just need to tell us what. You're right. They need to take care of us.
I'm glad that this is a intervention that we're having with the people who listen to this show.
Oh, I've got some things.
Okay.
Forget all that bullshit.
Just shut the fuck up, Michael. I'm busy.
There's another thing that Kurosawa said. He was asked about like what it was like making a TV film in comparison to working on like a full theatrical feature. And he said that it didn't really feel that different to him as far as like what his style is. There wasn't a lot about his style and the way he likes to do things that was like restricted. He said the only thing is that he knew he couldn't use very shocking scenes. He said there can't be a lot of people dying because that's not allowed on television. It has to be more quiet, but yet still have that impact.
That's bizarre, because I've seen some Japanese television, and it could be pretty crazy. I mean, I guess it's not...
It could depend on the time slot, too, like when it aired.
And the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I
think it's like Europe, too, because you can get away with more sex on TV than you can with violence.
Also, it was shot in 2 weeks. He described it as having a lower budget. The estimation is $200,000 to $300,000.
Wow, that's nothing. Even in 2000, that's like nothing.
But what would you need it for? You know, like, everything's simple about this movie. You don't...
And that's one of the reasons I think it works, is that it fits for that budget perfectly. It gets back to what we've talked about time and again, that, like, when you have a low budget, if you know what you're doing and you shoot for that...
Yeah, stay within it, you know,
you can make an incredible film for not a lot of money.
Right.
Okay, we can do final thoughts now.
Final thoughts. Do you want Michael to go first? Because I don't think he liked it that much.
Let's sandwich him. I'll go first.
Okay.
Because I picked it. I love Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I had never seen this. I'd always wanted to, and this seemed like a good excuse to get into it.
Sure.
I really wish it had some kind of release. I hate that it's sort of like floating out there as lost media right now.
Yeah.
It would be great in like a Kiyoshi Kurosawa box set.
Sure would.
A lot of his stuff doesn't have a release, so hit them all together. I do want to see that other film and look a little bit more at the novel, because I do think there's some compelling, interesting ideas there. I love what this is doing. I love that it's merging those J-horror elements, and that those may either be there or that's just like a symptom of a more psychological thing going on. And it plays in that gray area of like things aren't super defined and is left open for you, and I really dig that. And I always dig stuff that looks at like paranormal topics like this. I almost wish there was a little more with the whole like professor grad student angle.
Yeah.
In a way. I'd say it's definitely not his best. No. Because when you look at his like great films like Cure and Pulse, those are on such a level that's like, it just blows you away. So I am pretty confident sitting at like 4 stars on this one because I really liked it.
Okay. Nice. Michael.
So the 2 versions that I had to choose from to watch this, there was a soft subbed version that had higher video quality, but lower sub quality, which we found out the subs went out of sync.
Yeah, they start trailing by about like a whole line after a while.
Or I had the hard subbed version, which was poorer video quality, and it was pretty poor video quality.
It was about like a VHS tape.
I went with a good video quality, or the decent video quality.
See, I went with the bad video quality, better subs. And I think that might have hurt it.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake.
Because
he's completely fucked up.
Because it's
Jesus, even for become straight aggressive now.
Because even for what it is and like the lower budget and stuff, I do think it's very well shot, and there's a lot of great like frame composition and stuff.
Yeah,
I love the score to it. The minimal.
The music's good.
I'm glad you brought it up because we hadn't mentioned that yet.
The score is minimal but effective.
It really hits those moments just right.
But overall, I found myself kind of bored watching it, and I think maybe it's because the video was so blurry that I was just like watching blurry people.
It doesn't help when you can't see.
Yeah.
You didn't even know the ghost was blurry because you couldn't tell. Everyone was blurry. They're all ghosts. Holy shit.
I think I just expected something different. I think my expectations were very different for this film. And then when it actually wasn't full-blown J-horror, which is what I was expecting, I think I was thrown a little bit. And I found myself not really digging the story all that much. But then when you read me the other story, I'm like, that story sounds really good. I just wasn't digging. I wasn't digging these characters. I wasn't digging the way it was playing out. I don't think that means it's a bad movie. I just don't think I dug it as much as others did. So I think I'm going to sit at a 3.
Okay.
Because I think there are a lot of redeeming qualities for it. And because like you said, I think it is well shot. It's well executed in doing the scares, quote, scares. There's not many, but they're effective.
They're effective, yeah.
They're effective and creepy.
It's well paced too, like for the runtime. I think it didn't like overstay its welcome.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with that. So I think 3 is probably fair for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not as harsh as you thought it was going to be, was it?
Not at all.
No. Jason, you can bring us home.
All right. I dug it. I liked it. It was good. That's my in-depth analysis.
I like movies.
I wish it was a little scarier, but I mean, I said that about almost every horror film, right? I mean, that's so subjective. But it also goes to what Kurosawa said about how he couldn't really do too much shocking stuff or anything. Yeah, having heard the synopsis of the novel, that sounds like a more intriguing story. But judging this on what it was, I did like it. I wasn't bored.
I love the side eye you gave Michael.
He's just straight fucking aggressive right now. He's bouncing between passive aggressive and aggressive.
Yeah.
And I wish you'd just fucking pick one.
I would give it 3.5 stars.
I was pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, because it's good, but it's probably it's not something I would pick up on Blue. Let's put it that way. You know, but I'm definitely happy I watched it, and I'll probably revisit it again in like 10 years or something. You know.
You think you're gonna live that long? Wow.
Well, I'm crossing my fingers. I did come away thinking of A Simple Plan a lot.
It did remind me a lot of A Simple Plan.
Sam Raimi's film.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's another good like linking thing to connect.
It's just a bunch of bad choices, and it's people who are like in a life they don't really like, but then they're stuck with it.
And I love films like that too, where you just have these cascading bad choices,
cascading system failures.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, I definitely recommend it. It is out there. It's not too hard to find. You know,
if
you like J-horror, if you like Kurosawa, yeah, it's also a good one to start with. I think because it's like if you're not so sure about the whole J-horror thing, you don't want to jump in the deep end. It's a nice kind of safe one to start with.
I agree.
If you were scared of cat like Michael used to be.
I still am. I don't make any bones about it.
All right, well, that's Seance, and that's it for our made-for-TV movies.
Ooh.
I'm sure we'll revisit one day.
There's so many more out there to watch.
Next up, we're going to do another listener episode.
These are my favorite. They're always my favorite.
Get chill, just relax. We have all these from Cliffy, and I mentioned him this episode, so I think we're going to do one of his films.
Yeah, Cliffy.
Michael, you did a lot of research for us today,
figuring out. It was like 10 minutes.
Figuring out where these movies are.
It was a lot.
He sent me, like, the message he sent, I was like, that's some great research, my dude. And I'm like,
I looked at Just Watch.
Dude, just take the fucking compliment.
I can't do it. I can't.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
So based on the results of that, we are going to be checking out Let the Bullets Fly from 2010, directed by Zhang Wen.
It's Chow Yun-fat.
My boy.
It was way stupider than it should have been. My boy. No, Cliffy did give us a couple really good recommendations to watch. One of them I've actually already done as my what we've been watching.
So maybe we'll get to that further down the road.
Potentially, it's pretty fresh for me. And the other one he mentioned I really, really want to see, but it's hard to track down right now. So we also chose this one because it's very, very easy to find.
It's on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, and we found out it's on Tubi as well.
Right, so you got two options there.
So if you don't have Prime and don't want to pay for it,
if you're totally cheapskate, cool. Just go with Tubi.
Just get ready for those ads.
Yeah, I get the ads.
Tubi's awesome, man. I don't care.
I didn't even think, I wonder how Tubi, do they have good dubs? I've never watched anything, or subs.
I have, yeah, that's good.
Okay, yeah. I've never watched anything foreign on there, so I wasn't
I've watched
sure
a few Japanese things on there, and yeah, they have the subtitles and everything. Good.
Okay, and they seem to be pretty good with your limited Japanese knowledge.
Yes.
I mean, you can actually not pay attention to something and still kind of halfway know what's going on with as much Japanese stuff as you watch.
Yeah, really basic phrases. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about the next one. I always love the listener episodes because it is a chance for us to engage with everybody who listens, all 5 of you.
And please keep sending us movies.
Thank you, each and every one, for listening to us.
Yes, we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and like Dustin said, like if you've listened and just thought about like, oh, maybe these guys should watch this, please shoot us a message, even if it's one line. You don't have to send us a well thought out anything. Yeah. Just send us a line of a movie, even if it's pornography. We'll just have Jason watch it and give us a rundown.
It will be fair and balanced,
as all things should be.
So yeah, as always, please continue to write, connect with us. You can do it on all of your favorite social media platforms. Twitter seems to be the favorite of everybody, which is totally fine.
Until Elon Musk buys it.
As long as it lasts.
Yeah. I really don't know how it works. But yeah, Dustin knows that as well. We should be having some more content up on our website.
One day.
One day. There's a lot of
when my work situation settles.
There's a lot of life shit happening right now.
I can crank some stuff out. I got a bunch of stuff in the works. It's just the time to finish it.
We'll get there.
So I'm really excited for that avenue that we have, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of write about things that we're passionate about that may not necessarily be episode worthy or episode content. You can explore a few different things. So. As always, please continue to write us, follow us on all your favorite socials, and until next time, you've been listening to Genre Exposure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.